We are here today to talk about Vinegar Syndrome's new 4K UHD release of the 1983 supernatural horror / period piece directed by Michael Mann. This film is none other than The Keep. Now, this was a secret release dropped by Vinegar Syndrome during its Black Friday event. The other secret release that they put out was the film Sliver. Now, Sliver stars Sharon Stone, and this is kind of an erotic drama thriller. Haven't watched this one yet. I've seen it before when it first came out back in the day, but I haven't seen the new transfer of it yet. But of course, have almost immediately watched The Keep. I'm fairly excited about this version. Now, we previously did have a DVD version, and we're going to talk about the quality of the DVD compared to this new 4K UHD Blu-ray release. Now, there's also an imprint version that's been announced that's going to be released in the near future. But today we're going to take a look and we're going to dive into this Vinegar Syndrome release. And the question is, do you consider this to be the definitive version of this film? Has this atmospheric horror film finally got the visual treatment that it deserves? We're going to answer those questions. And we're also going to we're going to dive deep into this film. And eventually I'm going to give the film my personal rating. And we're going to rate this release. Hi, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you just take a moment, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. The Keep was directed by Michael Mann. Now, Michael Mann, this is the only horror film he ever directed. He, for the most part, has directed crime dramas, and he's very, very talented at doing this. He directed Heat. There's a new Criterion release that's been announced, Thief with James Caan. Now, even this film, even though it is considered a horror film, it is... I don't know if he necessarily considered it as a horror film while he was directing it. He considered it more of an adult fairy tale. That was kind of how he approached it, because it doesn't. Now, this was 1983. If you think about what's going on in '83, this was kind of right in the slasher heyday area. So slashers were very popular. Now, this is a period piece that takes place in 1991 Romania, and we're going to dive into this the plot here shortly. But that having those things it isn't really a slasher horror. It has maybe not really hardly any slasher stuff going on in it, but also it doesn't take place in present day time like most slashers do. So it kind of had those things. That for the time people weren't into that, so it didn't do all that good when it was released. But it, over time, has developed a cult following. I think I originally saw it on television. Now, what's interesting about the film, now I've seen it on television, and there's additional scenes and a completely different ending that I saw when I watched the TV version. Now, I kind of prefer that version because it was the first one I saw, and it is a little bit slightly more upbeat. All right, so here's what happened. Michael Mann, after he was finished the movie, he had a very long cut of the film. It was like a ridiculously long film. I think it was about 280 minutes. They didn't want it wasn't going to play very good in 1983 at the theater, so they told him he had to cut it down. He cut a bunch of shit out of it. He cut it down to about, I think, 180 minutes, and they still weren't happy with it. They eventually made him cut it down to 95 minutes, like an hour and 35 minutes. So that's kind of what this is, the 95-minute version. And for the most part, it does work. I think that a lot of people were confused by some of the parts of the film. I think because things were cut out of it, so it made some of the parts not make as much sense as they should have. The movie is based on a novel by F. Paul Wilson, and I think that people who have gone back and read the novel have made more sense out of it. Now, even though people, I don't know if it's not necessarily it doesn't make sense, because really everything is in the movie to make it make sense, but I don't know if they're necessarily ready for some of the things that took place in the film, as far as their horror mentality was not there with how it is kind of simple, but it's also fairly complicated. Now, we're going to talk about that plot, and we're going to dive into that plot. But first, I want to say there is an ensemble cast in this film that is amazing. And it is an ensemble cast, even though there is a hero. But the hero, played by Scott Glenn, top billed, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. But he first appears on screen about 20-something minutes into it. Alberta Watson gets the second billing, followed by Jürgen Prochnow. Jürgen Prochnow plays a German officer who is kind of the good German officer. Robert Prosky, Gabriel Byrne plays a very evil Nazi officer that we're going to talk about later, and Ian McKellen plays a Jewish professor, and really this cast is amazing, and they all do amazing work. I would like to see the extended version just to see, because I'm sure their performances are even more enhanced with the extended version. Now, as far as the TV version, there are some scenes that kind of help it, but unfortunately, the scenes from the TV version are not included here. But the Vinegar Syndrome was upfront about this. They posted about it. They have it on their page. When you pop the movie in, there's even a blurb about it. So they're not trying to. They know there's TV footage, and of course everybody knows there's TV footage who knows about it, right? But they couldn't get the rights to it, and it maybe even the quality of the television footage probably wasn't good enough to upgrade to 4K. They would have to go back and get a negative version of it, the original camera negative, or something of a better version. Otherwise, if they tried to splice those scenes into this film, they would look very bad. Now, everything you see here is fairly amazing as far as the quality of it, especially when you compare it to the DVD, which we're going to talk about in detail further into the movie, because right now I want to talk about the plot. So this takes place in 1941 Romania during World War II, and there's a group of German soldiers who are stationed at this keep. They come in this small Romanian village. Now, I should say that this film looks amazing. It is it's very. There's a lot of fog throughout, and everything you see, like the first of a bunch of German trucks drive into this small Romanian village. It looks quite quaint, and you see, and then all the little houses in the village, they all got these like kind of Romanian pictures on their outside of the house. But they come up, and there's this big castle keep with a big moat around it and a bridge. The only way to get to it is you go over this bridge. Now that moat or around it is very deep. There's no water in it, just like a very deep like hole. I don't even know how far down it goes. At one point, somebody gets knocked into it, and they end up on a ledge. But it like if he'd kept going, I'm not sure how far he would have gone. It wouldn't have been good, though, I would assume. So we're first introduced to who seems like he might be the main character, but really this is an ensemble piece. But Jürgen Prochnow plays a German captain, and he is a major character, but he's not necessarily the main character. But he comes into this Romanian town with this big castle keep thing, and he's the first one to walk inside and look at it. Now he goes inside and he sees this. It's just a big open room, and there's like all these weird, like it looked to be silver crosses into this stone all around the outside of it. It turns out they're made of nickel for the most part, but his officers see that there's silver, and then later on trying to take it, trying to take some of it off the wall, and that of course causes the initial problem. But it's a very ominous looking keep. They call it the keep. That's all they call it, but it's like a very big building. Now they at some point somebody does say something to the nature of there's stones. I guess the way the stones are in the inside of it are bigger than the ones on the outside, and they say that's unusual because usually you would put the bigger ones on the outside. And they're like, well, everything about this is unusual because they're trying to keep something in instead of keeping something out. And that's a cool thing, but it does make me ask this question: why wouldn't they just put the big stones on both sides? Because even though if you are trying to keep something in, you don't want the outside to get damaged too. So I would think you would have put the best stones on both sides. But anyway, they did that this way, obviously, to ask that question. And someone, but he comes in, and there's a caretaker who comes in and warns him. He says, you guys can't stay here overnight. And he's like, what are you going to do about it? But Jürgen Prochnow's captain character, he's not like, what are you going to do about it? Like he's going to do something to him. He's a very kind of chill character, and he's not. He is kind of the way that he is presented as a good man, and he's not being aggressive. But he's been stationed there, and he has to follow orders, or you know what happens. And really, all the soldiers here, they have to follow the orders. But he said no one ever sleeps here. Some have tried, but they always leave before the morning. And he's like, what, has people been killed here? And he's like, no one's been killed, but they have these really bad dreams, and those dreams cause them to leave. But he has to stay anyway because of his orders. And I think because of the orders and what's at stake, if he disobeys the orders, like everybody stays, despite the place having an effect on them. Now ultimately there is an evil trapped inside of this keep, and that's why it's there to begin with. Nobody goes in there, but it's trapped in there, and it's being protected. It's that keep is protecting the world from this evil, which these German soldiers are in there. Now, other than Jürgen Prochnoff's character, the rest of them seem like they're pretty shitty guys. Now, the two of them, the first two that get killed, they try to steal one of the crosses. They try to plop it off the wall, and then they do take it off the wall, and then they open up this chamber, and that's where the evil is. Now the evil comes up, and at first it's just kind of smoke, and it comes up and kills both of them. Now as it goes on, and more people are killed by this evil, it starts to become more of a corporeal, solid being. The more people it kills, the more stronger it gets. The more it starts off as just kind of an essence, and then it starts to eventually become a form of evil, and eventually almost like a giant monster, or man-like monster, just bigger than a man. After the first people were killed, there's the character played by Scott Glenn, who's a mysterious stranger, deeply connected to the keep. Now, this is something that I think confused a lot of people. Now, once the first people are killed, it cuts to him. He's in another place. He's in a bed, and his eyes light up, really light up, and then he sits up. He is a supernatural being as well, but he is, unlike the evil that's in the keep, he seems to be the good half of this evil, even though he acts very strange. I don't think he's human at all. And I think these are two sides of a different coin, good and evil, and he's a protector of the keep, or he's protecting the world from this monster. So he's awakened, and he has to come back to the keep to check on what's going on, to make sure that this evil doesn't get out. So he starts his journey. For some reason, he's not, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this is his only evil he has to take care of, but he seems to be directly linked to this one. But I would think that it's been there in that keep for a long time, and so he didn't want to just hang out right by the keep, get bored or whatever, but he ends up having to come on a boat to get there. Scott Glenn, who top billed, he doesn't have all that much screen time. He has a decent amount, but he's definitely shares about the same amount of screen time as most of the other characters. Jürgen Prochnoff's character, the captain, the next day he's like, man, we got to get out of here. This thing is killing my men. It's killed these two guys. It's killed some other ones. He asked for a transfer. Instead of transferring him and getting his soldiers out of there, the Germans army sends an evil Nazi, Struthenfurther, which is kind of similar to a major if you look in the U.S. Army, played by Gabriel Byrne. Now, the first thing this guy does, he shows up, and by the way, Gabriel Byrne is really awesome in this film. He is on fire here. He shows up, and the first thing he does is he lines up 3 of the villagers. He has them shot, and he's just like, okay, now he thinks maybe the villagers might have killed the soldiers in the keep, but even if they didn't do it, at least he catches their attention right away. That's one way to make an entrance. It's kind of like Negan does, I guess, in The Walking Dead, just shows up and kills somebody and lets everybody know not to fuck with him. So then he comes in, and Jürgen Prochnoff's character has already been there a day or two, and he's already feeling the effects of the keep. Now, the keep is very evil, but he's struggling with this. Now, he, unlike most of the other German officers there, he is a decent man. But you can tell as it goes on that he tries to be passive, but he can't really be too confrontational with Gabriel Byrne, who's superior. He's above him in rank. So, but at the same time, he does kind of push him some, and the scenes between those guys are friggin' terrific, and that escalates as the film goes on. I don't know if there's additional scenes with more of that. I would really like to see more of that because those scenes are terrific. But maybe this is the right mixture of scenes, because sometimes when you get to this point when you're like, you want to see more, it may be just enough, because that's all you need. You need just enough to make it work. And really, both of their performances here are top notch. But as it goes on, he seems like maybe Jürgen Prochnoff's captain character seems like maybe he's drinking, or he's drinking something. So it may be alcohol, but he's definitely acting like he's having to do stuff to that nature to really deal with all this evil stuff and all this horrible stuff going on around him. So once Gabriel Byrne gets in there, there's some writing on the wall, which I think Robert Prosky's character, who's a priest from the Romanian town, he comes in and he says there is a professor who knows a lot about this keep. He used to live here, but now he's in a German concentration camp. So they sent for him and his daughter as well to come back to translate what that means and to also help with other stuff around the keep. Just figure out what the hell's going on and what's killing all these soldiers. But this guy's played by Ian McKellen, and he's an older guy. He seems to be an older guy in a wheelchair. He's got a disease which is killing him. But they bring him back in there, and he's actually, I think he's a lot younger than he looks, but he looks like really old. But he's actually younger. But this disease is making him crippled. So he comes in and he figures out what it means, and he actually encounters the evil after. Well, two of the German soldiers try to rape his daughter, and then they're killed by the evil, and then the evil actually at that point becomes more of is played by an actor kind of in a rubber suit. So he's able to come in there and talk to Ian McKellen's Dr. Cuza character, and the evil guy, he becomes a kind of a hulking dude. His name's Molasar. It's said in the film at some point, but so he comes in and he talks to Ian McKellen and he touches him. And when he touches him, it heals the doctor. He's healed from his disease. He looks like a lot younger, and he's able to walk around and stuff, even though he pretends like he's still in the wheelchair for the German soldiers. But when he kills, like when Molasar kills people, he like the Germans or whatnot, and he seems like he sucks the life force out of their face, like, and he takes it in, and then that's what he seems to be taking, maybe their essence or their souls or something. But it doesn't seem like, which he doesn't do in the film, but it doesn't seem like he can do that to anybody who's not an evil son of a bitch. It seems like if they're evil, or maybe he just chooses to take the evil ones because maybe that essence may change him. If he did that to somebody who's not evil, it might mess up his whole mojo. I don't know. But he seems to only be able to target, or he only chooses to target evil people throughout the film. But he's not. So he doesn't kill Jurgen Prochnoff's character, or he doesn't kill Alberta Watson's character, or Ian McKellen's. But not to say those characters don't get killed in some other way. But he doesn't kill the good characters. But he does eventually fight Scott Glenn's character when he gets there. But I think those two characters are kind of a good and evil sides, and then they have to fight in order, and Scott Glenn's character has to fight in order to keep him in there. And Michael Mann, the way he does a lot of these scenes, it's very dreamlike. Like a lot of these scenes seem to go like longer than you would think, especially when things are happening, like the smoke of this guy, of the Molasar character coming out and coming towards people. Like some scenes, but there's this music in here that's done by Tangerine Dream that is friggin', it's amazing. It makes it's very dreamlike, and it's minimalistic, but it really works for the film. Now, I did see this movie on Netflix at one point, and they apparently didn't have the rights to the Tangerine Dream soundtrack, and it didn't work as well with that music. It just, like, I don't know what. When I saw it on Netflix, it'd been a long time since I saw it on television, and I thought maybe that was what the soundtrack was all along. But they had to get a different soundtrack for it, and I was like, "Wow, this movie is not what I remembered it." And this soundtrack by Tangerine Dream, it really makes the film. Just seeing it without it was like, man, this movie is not nearly as good as I remembered it being. But the film, it's not going to be for all taste. It definitely has a cult following. I do like the atmosphere of it. It is very, very eerie atmosphere. I really like what Michael Mann does with the actors and just putting them in this situation. And it's very realistic performances throughout. I really think Ian McKellen's performance here is quite powerful, especially at the end when he's kind of, in some ways, kind of switches between characters. But ultimately is the person to make a sacrifice. The evil's trying to manipulate him into taking this talisman out of the keep. Now, that's the only way that the evil can get out, because it's trapped in there. But somebody who isn't evil, is a good man, has to take that talisman and get it out of there. And so he manipulates him. He cures him. It's also interesting because there is evil going on here in World War II, and there's Nazis. There's actually evil Nazis there. And Gabriel Byrne's character reveals to him, apparently at this time people weren't aware of this yet, but he's in a concentration camp. And Gabriel Byrne's character, in order to scare him more, he tells him the truth about what they're doing in concentration camps. Like, he reveals to him that they're killing the Jews in the concentration camps. So he tells him, he's going to go put him back in the concentration camp, and the only way out of that concentration camp from there is going to be burned in the oven. So he knows about these evils. And at the same time, this new evil is there in the keep, and he's saying, "Hey, you get me out of here, I'm going to go kill all those friggin' German soldiers, those Nazi evil soldiers who were burning the Jews. I'm going to go kill them all. So all you got to do is go get that talisman. You get me out of here. Not only do all the evil Nazis get killed, but you're also healed. You're not going to be a cripple the rest of your life and die an early death." So he is the one that's really struggling with this, and it's a hard call, really, because is taking one evil to kill another evil, which would make that evil more powerful, is that something that should be done? And the priest comes and confronts him. Robert Prowski's priest comes and confronts him, Ian McKellen's character, and he tells him, he basically tells him off about all this. But then the priest leaves, and then he's walking across the bridge, and he's affected by the evil himself, and he goes and eats a dog. His eyes turn red, and he goes and eats a dog because its evil is so strong. It starts to really affect the village around. Now, there's some scenes apparently that were deleted that would have been nice to have in here. Apparently, more crazy stuff happens in the village. The evil starts to seek into the village and cause the villagers to start to act evil. There's some dialogue about it in the film, but it's not really seen on screen, other than the priest eating the dog, which is pretty gruesome, and his eyes are red. And another interesting thing about Scott Glenn's character, when Alberta Watson is taken from the keep to the village, and she's put in a room, Scott Glenn's character is in the room already, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't realize somebody was in here," and then he says he's staying in the room. But his character actually has some power, some manipulative power. I think this is something that some people may have been annoyed about as well, because almost immediately he sees her, and there's an instant attraction. Now, she looks in the mirror, and he doesn't have a reflection. And that's so he's I think maybe these guys may be something to do with vampires, both of them maybe. But even though they go out in the day, especially Scott Glenn's character seems to be out in the day, but there's an instant attraction, and he seduces her, and there's a few like little scenes, like they go out and talk and stuff like that I think they may have been longer in the TV version, but he eventually has sex with her in this like kind of 80s montage of sex scenes, which seems a little out of place in the film a little bit, but at the same time, some people might be annoyed about how quick the sex happened, but I think that character, Scott Glenn's character, is very powerful, and he's able to seduce her pretty quick to go ahead and get that going. And that may lean towards a manipulative act of him doing that, but his character knows that going into this fight that he's probably not going to survive it. So he's wanting to feel humanity. He's been on the earth for a long time, and the keep's been keeping this thing at bay, but now he knows everything's about to change, and this is kind of his last hurrah for being a human. But he does make a connection with this woman, and she actually makes a connection with him, so that's there. Something very powerful that Ian McKellen's character says to the monster once he realizes what's happening, and that he tells him, I wrote this down, he's like, "This keep is a prison to contain you. You have lied, exploited, and deceived. You are the same evil as the outside of this place." Now, I thought that was a pretty powerful, and he delivers this with such conviction. He is on it in that scene, and and that's when he makes that decision that he's not taking the talisman out of it, and he stands up to the evil. So let's take a good look at this Vinegar Syndrome release here. So we got a very nice slip box, very very thick, and we also have a booklet, and here's the movie with a slipcover. Now, if you were to order this directly from Amazon, you would either get it this way with a slip, and maybe not. You would probably just end up getting it like this. And so here's the inside of it. There are two discs. There's a Blu-ray disc here, and there is a 4K disc. There's also a reversible inside insert. Now this has the original art on it, which I kind of like the original art. I don't know about all those words at the top and then the keep really small, but it's I kind of dig that. I don't necessarily not like the original one. Let's take a look at the booklet here. There's Scott and Glenn's character coming into the keep. Now this, you see this right here. There's so much. They had to flood this thing with fog machines all the time. It friggin' looks amazing and really really creepy. And that's Alberta Watson there, her character. So this booklet's got a lot of information about the film, some essays written by people. The special effects here, I don't know if it necessarily does the film justice. They probably now they would have been a lot better with the use of digital effects. There's Gabriel Byrne's character, one of the best scenes of the film when he comes up against the evil, and he's evil himself. But the special effects, some people consider them a little cheesy. There's some early animation involved with, like, say, especially when people's, like, when their souls or essences are being sucked out of their face. But not that it looks horrible, but I mean, I'm fine with it. I think some people think the monster looks cheesy once he shows up, but I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I think it works, but clearly it could be done better now. But I guess it is kind of jarring if you think this monster looks cheesy, and then the rest of the film just looks amazing. Like, it's such an awesome location that they're shooting at. As far as the transfer here, this thing looks amazing, especially in comparison to this. But this looks really awful. Really, I popped this in to look at it again. I watched it when I first got it a few years ago. It was really hard to get. There actually hasn't really been a good release of this film on physical media, but this one I did see. They had a VHS version, I think, a long time ago. This is probably just a uptick from the VHS master, but it just looks bad. There's an interlace problem in it. But the detail here in this 4K scan of this film, it really does it justice, I think. And the blacks are very deep throughout. And I don't think they did a restoration of the film, but the transfer in itself looks amazing. There's not like a really heavy amount of film grain that's distracting, but the film grain's there. And really, I think this is a stunning release of this. Now, with all this fog all over the place, it doesn't necessarily lend to great detail a lot of times, even though the close-ups do look quite sharp, and you do see a fairly bit of texture and detail in some of the closer shots. But with the fog there, it does kind of lend to not necessarily the heavy detail, but it works as far as making the film eerie, and it's supposed to be like that. And I think they did a damn good job on this transfer. Is this a definitive version? Probably not, because we don't have the TV scenes. I don't know if we're ever going to see any other footage other than the TV scenes. They may have eventually be able to get those, but I doubt we'll ever see the longer cuts that the studio forced them to make. Those are probably lost to time, more than likely. But who knows? Maybe they are recoverable and somebody would get a hold of them, but probably not. The imprint version, I don't know if it's going to have anything different than this one. It may have some extra stuff in there, but I think it's going to be the same transfer. And to me, the transfer is the most important thing. So I really think this release might be the best one, unless at some point somebody releases those other scenes. So let's go ahead and take a quick read from the back of this thing of the specs. Contains the 96-minute feature presentation of the Keep, presented in Dolby HDR and newly restored from its 35mm original camera negative. So that's a pretty impressive that they were able to get the original camera negative and make the transfer, which it looks quite nice, very very organic. I'd highly recommend it. All right, let's go ahead and rate this thing. I'm going to rate this film now. It's probably going to be a little too high of a rating for most people's likes, but I'm going to give it a 4-star. Obviously the special effects are, some people think they are a little cheesy, but I think it kind of adds to the whole thing. I think the score by Tangerine Dream here is the perfect score for this dreamy, atmospheric film. I really like the atmosphere of the film. I like the period, like, Romanian village with the 1941 German troops in there, and then I really like all of those production values and the aspect of it, and the way it's directed. The acting is terrific. I'm going to give Vinegar Syndrome a 4.5 star for this release. They did a damn good job. Now, I would really like to see the Michael Mann cut, even though Michael Mann kind of doesn't, from what I've read, he doesn't really like this film. It is the only horror film that he ever has done. he might do one, but probably not. He doesn't seem to be the type of movie he likes to make, but I do like what he did here. I know he had a hell of a time making this film, especially with them having to cut out so much of the film, and then at the end, and apparently they even had like a different ending that's closer to the book that they shot, but they weren't able to edit it together. The special effects guy who had done all the special effects for the film died before they were able to finish editing it, and nobody could figure out how to edit the stuff he had shot together. So they ended up having to shoot a different ending, which some people think it might be a little anticlimactic. I think it works. Now, there's one scene where this monster, he kills all the Nazis inside of the keep, and it's not shown. The Gabriel Byrne's character walks in there, and they're all dead. So it seems like there should have, and there was a scene written for that, which would have been awesome, but they didn't have the budget for it, so they had to cut that back. But it still works. Anyway, let me know what you think about this movie and the Vinegar Syndrome release. If you haven't done so already, if you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.